You say they'd only have you scan one of
They
them?
only have to scan one barcode for 3 containers.
And what was the reasoning behind that?
Some are radioactive, like the chemotherapy type stuff, and so we put that on the scale, but we scan the one that's not radioactive, not the chemo.
These were the types of shocking allegations levied by a masked man in the full-feature documentary titled Medial Waste Madness, The Devil's Work, on EnviroNews in September of 2014. The result? 3 investigations launched by the Utah Governor's Office. The Department of Environmental Quality and the Utah Labor Commission have been assigned to the case, as well as the State Attorney General's office in a new criminal probe. So far, no progress in any of these investigations has been revealed to the public by any of the aforementioned agencies. But tonight, in another shocking EnviroNews report, we sit down once again with the whistleblower after he told us that he had more twisted tales of darkness to expose. Now, we want to reiterate before airing this interview that the views expressed by the whistleblower are his own and do not represent the views or opinions of the EnviroNews network. As we weren't physically there, we can neither deny nor corroborate the man's tales. We have only provided him the platform to tell his story. Take a listen. We're here on EnviroNews Utah again this evening with our anonymous Stericycle whistleblower. Want to say thank you to you again for coming on the show with us this evening.
No problem.
And, first just let me ask you, why are you doing this? What's motivating you?
Well, first, when I first worked there, I really didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Like, just doing my job as I was told and instructed by my supervisors. And then I found out about the kids in Foxborough that had got a lymphoma, and to me, there's no coincidence about how they got it. And then I started seeing everything in the media about how they opened their bypass stack, and it's just not right how they're getting away with all the stuff they're doing.
And you said that when you worked there at the facility, you didn't realize that you were doing anything wrong or anything that could potentially be a violation, or...
No, it was the first time I worked in an incinerator. Like, actually, that might be my primary job.
And so what else is motivating you to come in and give us more information this evening?
Well, I think it's time for the truth to come out right now, so...
All right. Thank you for doing that. And would you like to tell us your name for the record?
My name's Richard Bates.
And how long did you work at Stericycle?
Worked there roughly about between 5.5, almost 6 months.
And what time period were you there?
I started there roughly around June, July, around there of last year, and I quit just in the beginning of November.
Okay, so about a 5-month time period.
Yeah.
And you had told us that you actually were employed at the facility through a temp agency, is that correct?
Resource MFG.
Okay, and that's pretty common there, I understand?
Yeah, it's high turnover rate. It's easier to get people that are going to go through a temp service and hire them on permanently.
Now, speaking of the high turnover rates, it's come to our attention that, for instance, slaughterhouses have extremely high turnover rates. Many employees can barely, stand to work there for a month. What was your experience as far as the turnover rate at Stericycle?
The day I started, there's 4 or 5 people all came in, and there's me and another guy that kept the job right then and there. The other guy quit in about a month. Just he couldn't stand the smell of it, and it's pretty rancid in there.
And how many people would you say that you were seeing, come through there, and then...
The period I worked there, there's probably at least probably like 15, 20 people that started and quit.
And when you first started working there, what was your task right in the beginning?
When I first started working there, it was unloading the trucks on the receiving dock.
And how long did you do that?
About a week.
And then?
I went from there to loading the belt for the incinerator.
So you were actually directly hands-on handling these packages, handling these BTO ones, scanning them where they're declared, and then, helping them to get loaded onto the belt to go into the incinerator. Is
yes.
that correct? Coming out this way, Naturally, Stericycle is probably going to attack you. Is there anything, I mean, were you a problem child at work? Were you a rabble-rouser? Were you the type of employee that they're going to say, you know, oh, he was always out of line?
No, I've never got written up there. Never. I was late to work a couple times. That's about it.
What can you tell us about the circumstances that you actually stopped working there? What happened?
I can't remember his exact name. There's another guy that didn't like me, and he was Hispanic and he didn't like whites. And he got mad that I got to be put on the belt at first, because honestly, one of the easiest jobs in there. And he went there and shoved me, and I kind of protected myself, just kind of pushed him away from me and everything, and they ended up laying us both off because they couldn't prove who did what.
So there was a slight altercation or disagreement with another employee,
Yeah.
and because they couldn't really verify what happened, they let you both go. Is that correct? And I mean, are you just an employee with an axe to grind, or
No,
a disgruntled
I have
employee?
nothing against Stericycle at all. It's just, like, the employees themselves, I have nothing against them. The company, yes. The employees there, no.
And just for the record, we'd like to state that how we encountered you, you didn't come to us jumping up and down saying, I'm going to tell you some stuff about Stericycle. It was a very organic process, and it took us a while to get to this point. What was it ultimately that, you know, motivated you to come forward, even before, under the cloak of darkness, and start to discuss these issues?
Honestly, the first part that made me want to come out was the kids. Just, I mean, the kid doesn't deserve that. He didn't do anything to deserve to get that. And like the lymphoma and whatever other kind of illnesses they have in there. Because it's not a coincidence that that many kids in Foxborough has it, and Stericycle's right there next to them. And all the fly ash, and when they open their stacks and everything, it's not a coincidence.
When you were working there, you said you weren't really aware of all that, and so was that a process for you, like watching the media and kind of watching all that unfold, or?
Like basically being like on the inside at first, like working there, and then seeing everything in the media about how all the things that they were doing actually illegally. Like not keeping up on, what's it called, air quality coming out of the stack and everything. Like I had never seen anyone come up there and test it or anything while I was there. And I think it's we're supposed to do at least once a month or something. I'm not sure how often, but I never seen anybody. And just after watching the media and everything, seeing all the violations, and a couple of the videos I've seen online, that they're just, I don't know how to put it, they're, in a way, they're kind of like a drug dealer ruining the community in a way. You know what I mean?
And so you said that basically the whole time you were there, you only really saw one inspector over there.
I've seen one inspector come in, and they basically pushed us out into the back of the truck bay to go wash the bays while they were talking to him. So I don't know why they didn't want other employees in there or not, but so I can't really say why they had us go out or not to talk to them, but I just went and did my job what they wanted me to do.
And you also had mentioned that right towards, I guess, towards the end of your time period of working there, your time of employment, that they were preparing to start giving these tours, these community tours.
They had me
correct?
go through and paint all the yellow barricades off the safety areas where not to cross and everything, and they'd had us wash all the rails down and power wash the floors and everything, making it somewhat presentable as much as you can in that kind of place. But
You'd spoken about the smell in our previous interview being...
it's like the most god-awful smell you could imagine.
Now, how do you think they have been dealing with that as far as the daily DEQ inspections, or as far as these public tours, or?
I honestly don't know how they actually be dealing with the smell, because we used everything we could possibly think of to cover that smell up, and there's no way of doing it. I mean,
Nothing was working.
no. I mean, you walk in there and the first thing you want to do is just gag and throw up right there just from the smell. I mean, it's rotting biological waste, you know what I mean?
So in all that time, 5 months at working at the facility, one inspector was all you saw that entire time period. Moving into some of the topics that we discussed last time, obviously there's been quite a bit that's transpired since our last interview. And
a major point of concern, obviously, has been, what you mentioned to be the intentional and deliberate burning of radioactive medical waste.
Mm-hmm.
And when these packages come in, you've mentioned that there are a couple different ways that they tag these BTO1s,
Yeah.
biological transfer 01 units. And what can you tell us about that? How are those distinguished, or how are those marked?
White labels are pretty much just the most common stuff coming from hospitals. It could be anything from the blood vials where they do blood samples to bloody rags, like just normal stuff, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff out of the ORs. The yellow tags are the ones that are like chemo, like basically cancer treatment, stuff like that. So potentially it could be radioactive in them. Not every single one of them are, but there's quite a few of them that are. And when they went up there and told me to go up there and stack them over by the incinerator,
Being
my supervisor.
your supervisor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And just to clarify, she did what she told you to take the yellow tagged.
tags and take them over by the incinerator. This is when I was unloading trucks.
Okay.
And then after I started loading the belt, like a week later, like I thought I was putting them in the right place where they had to go. Because I was told it's supposed to be like a transfer station for them to go somewhere else.
For the yellow tags.
Yes, for the yellow tags.
So not only does the North Salt Lake facility serve as an incinerator, it also serves as a transfer station
Yes.
for the yellow tagged BTO1 waste, according to what you were told.
Yes.
Okay.
And after I started loading the belt, she came up and told me that we had to get rid of them. They had been here too long and everything, so she told me just to burn them. And I said, "Are you sure? Is there anything I have to do? Scan them again or anything?" And she said, "No, they've already been scanned. You just got to put them on the belt." So I did what I was told.
And those particular bags in that instance, I mean, had you seen those packages tested for radiation?
I've seen the Geiger counter go off on a few of them. Like, actually quite a few of them. Every time I unload a truck, there's probably at least. Out of all the ones we take off a truck, I'd say at least 100 or so would go off.
Really? How many, and this is referring to the BTO ones, the boxes, the gray
boxes.
The gray boxes. What percentage, roughly, would you say was radioactive?
I'd roughly say at least 25% of them or more.
Really? And those are supposed to be put directly onto another truck, or how does that transfer process
Well, if there's not a
work?
truck there to load them on, they basically get stacked over, and then either later that night or earlier the next day, the truck will be there to pick them up. But if you get an abundance of them, then you start losing room, and you know what I mean?
And that's when they'd
have us
order
get
you to
rid of
burn
them.
'em.
Yep.
And how did that process actually work? I mean, did you take them directly up and throw them over the hopper, or did you?
We'd put some on the belt, like we'd basically put other BTO ones on the, or like even if we were doing sharp containers that day or whatever we were doing, we'd put that thing on the belt, but whatever we were actually burning that day, put that product on the belt, then put the BTO ones with the yellow tags on there and scan the one that we were supposed to be burning, and then throw everything on the belt. So there's actually no record of them burning that BTO one.
On that topic of what's actually being declared and what's being put through the incinerator, there's a couple of different spots where the packages are actually weighed, correct?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of spots where the packages are scanned. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, now explain that a little bit. So a truck actually comes in.
Yeah. Well, like there'd be trailers sitting. When I got to work, I was working nights at first. So there'd be trucks, like trailers sitting back there already ready to be unloaded. Go get we call it a yard mule, and she'd back the trailers up to the dock. We'd unload them, and then right there by the back truck dock, there's a computer and everything, the scanner, the scale, everything right there.
Geiger counter there too?
Yep. And didn't work all the time, but we'd go up there and scan them right there, weigh them in, and basically stack them up.
And when you say it didn't work all the time, I mean, what leads you to believe that? Is it because like it would set itself off on a package and then you'd scan the same package and it wouldn't?
The other way around, we'd put it through it and it wouldn't go off at all. Then we'd take it over by the one by the belt, and it would actually go off there.
So they actually have 2 Geiger counters.
Yeah,
in there.
one each side.
And so oftentimes on the first Geiger counter, it wouldn't detect it.
Mm-hmm.
And
But
so
the second one it would. And they still put it on the belt even if it went off there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Were those just the white tagged bags that would set it off, or were those actually
Those
yellow?
are the yellow ones.
The yellow ones.
I've never seen a white one set them off. So.
And so they come in, they're scanned into the computer, and then you said that they're scanned and weighed again before they go up kind of a conveyor belt,
It goes up a
right?
conveyor belt, the main conveyor belt, and it drops off to another one, which actually weighs everything at the same time.
And the purpose of that?
You can only put so much in the hopper at a time to burn each time. It opens up like every 7.5 minutes to put more in.
So the second weigh station is basically to weigh each load that's going to go through the incinerator to make sure that too much isn't going in at once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the maximum that you were told?
I was told it was like between I believe if I remember right, it was between 300 or 400 pounds that we're supposed to do only at the first each time. I mean, that still sounds like a lot, but if you're actually there looking at it, it's really not as heavy as some of those things are.
Have you ever seen more than that fed through, or have you ever fed more than that through?
Unfortunately, I have, but
how much?
Most I've ever put in through there at one time was about 750, 800 pounds at the command of my supervisor, and done it herself before too. And actually, when they do that, the whole warehouse fills with smoke.
And why does that happen? I mean, does it become too much of a cluster, like too much gets on there at once, or what leads to that actually happening?
Basically, the only way I could think that works in the incinerator, how it does it is, if you have a pile of leaves already burning, you throw like a wet sheet over it, it's going to start smoking like crazy. So if you have too much in there at one time where it can't burn it all, it's going to start smoldering and smoking, you know what I mean? So those are when they pull it out of the incinerator at the back by the other belt where it actually puts into the dumpster in the back. It wouldn't be totally burned up and everything. It'd look like a big pile of melted plastic. And it shouldn't look like that. I mean, being burned that long before you pull it out, it should be pretty much ash. And it's not.
And you said that those belts, they actually have to be manually operated, you were saying, right? It's not just an automated process.
No, it's not an automated process. You have to push the button to feed it, to turn the belt on, and everything.
Do people fall asleep at the wheel? Does stuff fall off the belt? I mean, what?
No, there's stuff falling off the belt all the time there, off the back of it, on the sides of it, and everything.
And then
they'd send us back there with just a broom and a shovel and tell us to sweep it up and put it back in. But it shouldn't happen anyway. If you don't put too much on the belt, it wouldn't happen. Because there's sides on the belt that are probably about like 2 feet tall, about off the sides, so it you know what I mean, stay on the belt. Stuff would fall off all the time.
So if you could kind of explain exactly how it went down, that you have seen things, go into the incinerator that were not weighed or declared.
Things I've seen them do is like actually walk up. We call it the catwalk right next to it, and everything. Just walk up the belt on the staircase. I'd see them go up there and walk up there and actually throw it right into the hopper. So it's bypassing all the scales, everything.
And where was that waste coming from? I mean, they would literally take it right from the truck, like
there'd be times they come right from the truck, just stuff they had around that they had to hurry and get rid of. I mean, even stuff that shouldn't even be burning, like the office trash and stuff like that. The whole time I worked there, I never seen a garbage truck come in there. So I tell you, they'd only get rid of it one way.
Well, you said that there's stuff sometimes that's sitting around out there that they don't have permission to burn yet as well. Is that correct? And what happens with that stuff? I mean,
it goes into the hopper without being weighed. A lot of it does. A lot of it they'll have sitting there waiting to make it look like they're doing everything legitimately.
And is that some of the garbage can stuff?
Yeah.
Or what's in there?
All sorts of stuff. Pretty much you could think of people's, like the employees sweeping up the warehouse and everything, it'd be like the IV bottles, needles, pretty much all the same stuff we're burning already, just stuff that they just swept up and put in a garbage can somewhere. And they're not weighing it or anything, they're still just burning it right away. When it's supposed to go back through a process again to be weighed and you declare it as trash on this, you know what I mean? They basically You tell them that it's trash, you scan it, and you put it on there because it's still a biohazard because of what it is. So you still have to let everybody know that it's being destroyed, basically, you know what I mean?
And well, didn't you say too that there was like either some drums or some garbage cans or something that are basically full of stuff from the ORs or from?
Yeah, the garbage cans, they're like these big red, and they have red and yellow garbage cans there. They're like 55 gallons.
Come in on trucks also.
Coming on trucks, yeah. And we'd burn those. Sometimes it'd be the whole trash can. If it's just cracked or something, they'd throw the whole thing in there instead of dealing with it. Other times they'd go up there and have us open them and put other stuff in there with it. So when they scan it, then they're getting rid of what they want to get rid of with it. Without
What else would they put in there?
the BTO ones with the chemo type stuff in it and everything. And
The yellow tag bags
yeah,
that they would put right into these
yeah,
barrels, the red barrels.
yes.
Do those red barrels, do those ever sit around out at the warehouse or?
Oh yeah. There'd be, I remember one time, about a week, there's probably at least 200 of them just sitting there not being touched. And stuff like that shouldn't be sitting around that long. It should be dealt with as fast as possible, but
I mean, what's it like when you have to open those things after they sit around?
the only way I could kind of tell you, imagine like a deer sitting on the side of the road for like 2 weeks and everything, you cut it open, imagine the smell that'd come out of it. It's not gonna be pretty. It's really rough. It makes you want to puke right away just smelling it.
And you're exposed to that on a daily basis
Every day.
like that? Every day out there.
In the front of the office, when you first walk in the employee entrance there, you don't really smell it, but right when you open that door to the main incinerator, where the incinerator is and everything, it hits you like a ton of bricks, like if you walk into a brick wall.
Back to how the stuff is circumventing the scales again, because I want to try to clarify that for the viewers. You'd mentioned that sometimes it would get scanned at the first point, but then it just blatantly wouldn't be scanned
Yeah.
at the second set of scales, or I mean, not scanned, but weighed.
Man, it wouldn't get weighed.
What about stuff that fell off the belts or?
Stuff that fell the belt, like we're on the side, we'd usually, every time we do it the right way, just go up there and throw it back up on the belt. If it was behind the hopper, I mean, it's hot right there, like back there right by the hopper. And they just have us like use like these snow shovel looking things and sweep it up and throw it right into the hopper. So that's not being weighed either. And everything that goes in there is supposed to be weighed and documented that's being destroyed. So even just like a little shovelful going right into the hopper is still a violation, you know what I mean?
And do you have any idea, or were you ever informed of where the yellow tag bags were being transferred to?
They actually never told me.
Where they were going, these radioactive waste bags.
I didn't load trucks, I just unloaded them. Whoever loaded trucks would know that part. So
Okay.
I honestly don't know that part, where they were going.
Well, neither does anybody else apparently so far, because we've not been able to find out that information, but we're still looking. Let's talk about some of the worker safety issues.
The only thing they really gave us for safety were gloves and safety glasses. And they weren't gloves you'd think they were. They were rubber gloves, cheap rubber gloves.
And you said that you were actually on the team that would go in and clean out the incinerator,
Yes,
correct?
I helped. We call it punching out the incinerator. Like even the glass, you gotta think the glass vials of like medication that go in there, it all melts down and gets, a lot of it gets just stuck in the incinerator. You have to go out there and actually go in there and chip it out and spray it out. It's about 200 and 250 degrees in there at a time. So you can't go in there very long. And so you have a couple of people, you have one go in there, do it a little bit, and you come out, and the next one goes in and does it. And you also got to punch out the boiler. And that was not very pretty. You know, this big, long, like, pressure washer type hose, that's almost like a drill, too. And you're going up there and you're pushing it through these ports, and then right when you break through, it just shoots this, like, black, nasty water back at you. So, it's not fun.
What happens to that water and the water that they're using in the incineration process? And
I don't know where it goes. I can't remember the company's name that comes and gets it, but they have a pump truck that comes in and pumps all the water out. I have no clue where it goes. But I know I didn't like being next to it when they were pumping it out, 'cause just like I said, the smell again. You have all that stuff actually being rinsed with water and everything, and all the contaminants go into the water. It's like the worst smell in the world with that, too. Can't remember the name of the company that came and got it. I don't know where they took it. I don't even know any place you would take water like that. It's almost as bad as just taking blood somewhere and just dumping it on the side of the road.
Let's go back to the fudging and fibbing, as it's been called before, on the weights. You mentioned in our previous interview that you had actually seen the scales rigged by plant supervisors. What can you tell us about that? When and where, who, what was the situation?
I can't remember one of their names, but the other one was, I can't remember his last name, but he was one of the higher up supervisors. And he's pretty much in the office more than anything. But he'd come out, there's like this little thing on the side of the belt going up to the incinerator. It's like recording everything, like how it's done there. They actually go there and hold almost like how a Richter scale's done. It's like a little ink pen that goes moves back and forth. Then there's these little paper wheels that go on and they just spin around and they're being recorded on the dash. Go there and pull the pin up off from it or hold it still so it can't be doing anything. I've seen them do that for like 5 to 10 minutes at a time. Like probably sometimes once a day, sometimes more than 3 times a day.
Really? So you were witnessing them do this all the time, frequently. It wasn't just a couple
I didn't think I was doing anything wrong with it and everything, like not saying anything because I thought they were trying to fix it, so what's wrong with it or whatever. I mean, first time I was working in an incinerator, I don't know all the ins and outs about it, like what they were doing, so but he's a supervisor, he knew what he's doing.
Right. But now at this point in time, you're
pretty whack at it, and they were basically doing stuff so they could hide everything.
What else can you tell us along those lines? You know, what other things have you seen dishonest behavior?
One of them, she'd always be trying to get rid of as much as we possibly can and put more in the incinerator. She'd actually, when she ran it herself a couple of times, she'd just keep the belt going and put as much as she could in the hopper at one time. And she'd smoke us all out. There's no way you could possibly even be in that warehouse.
And so when these smokeouts occur, it's basically like, you know, somebody starts a fire in the fireplace, but the flue's closed or something, and it just billows back into the...
No, it's worse. It's like putting styrofoam on the fire and not having nowhere to go. I mean, it's black. Just like when you had to open up bypass. That same exact smoke was filling that warehouse.
And once again, no respirators, no protective gear.
The whole time I was there, I never had the respirator, never had any kind of ventilation for breathing or anything. I just had gloves and safety glasses.
They wouldn't let you out of the warehouse when that was going on, or?
She would go, but when I first started going, she would keep going, it's okay right now. But when it got like really, really bad, if she went out, that's when she'd let people go out, but I honestly didn't care. I'd go out before that because I didn't want to breathe that stuff in. It's not like she could see where I was anyway. I mean, that's seriously how bad it is when it smokes out.
Daily occurrence?
Some days are worse than others when they smoke out, but it's smoked out at least once a day.
Usually like when they're just trying to go faster and faster, or a situation like that.
Or other times when they shut the incinerator down, and then when they restart it back up, it'll smoke a little bit that way. Mm-hmm. But that's to be expected. Like even if they're doing everything legitimately right, it'd still do that on a startup.
Right, just like a fire when there's smoke before fire, essentially.
But it'd be every day just pushing too much through at one time. And it's horrible. You start choking and everything else, and I couldn't stand in there. I'd go out.
Didn't you say you were also exposed to quite a bit of the fly ash and having to deal with that?
When we go back there to empty the fly ash bags, that's where you think they give you the respirators at that point right there.
They would give
them? No, you think they would, but they don't. So basically there's a plastic bag inside of a canvas type bag. And it's just held on there on the spout where the fly ash comes out, it's just held on there by bungee cords. There's like a big drum that's hooked to has a corkscrew type thing in it that just keeps the fly ash coming through. And how we'd empty those, or change them, I should say, is just grab them, have you push it down so some of it was kind of be pushed back up. Then you put duct tape around it and put the other. Have you ever seen the bags that? They're basically designed so forklifts could pick them up. They got 4 loops on it where you can put the forks through. And those fly ash things probably weigh about, let's say probably at least 400 or 500 pounds a bag. And I don't know where that went either after we stacked it up. And then we just put another one on there and you go up there and smack it with a hammer down the side to get the flash to start coming through again. But there's no safety equipment at all with it.
And so would that put a lot of the ash
yeah.
into the air around you and stuff like that?
A lot, yeah.
And were you guys even wearing the felt masks or anything at all?
They didn't supply anything. Like, there's me and a couple other employees that put, the best thing we had is a bandana to put around our face. But that's not going to do much. Did a little, but not much. I think the best thing that they probably provided us with is be able to take a shower after work.
So when all these garbage cans come through, they're dumped, and then I guess some of the BTL1 containers as well. I could be wrong on that, I'm not sure. But then a lot of that stuff is actually washed there on site, correct?
All the BTL ones we empty and all the garbage cans we empty there are washed on site.
Okay.
They have like a big, it's like a dishwasher just on a bigger scale. And they put it through there. And on the other end, someone they call it catching. They'll grab them and stack them back up, and you put them in 6 in a stack. And then you put them right on a truck. Either put them on a truck or you stack them up for the next truck to come in to put clean ones back on.
And what about all that water that's being used in that process, washing those containers? Where does that go, or what happens with that?
That one we just drain right into a drain and everything, so it goes, I guess, into the sewer system there. I mean, you expect some to be on there right by the machine, but it'd be like all of it, like kind of like start running over other areas and everything. And I figured it was a danger because you could slip on and everything. And by the time we brought up like something like a safety concern and everything, they just basically told us to be careful. Instead of just telling the employee to be careful, you should just fix the problem. And all employees should be safe at work anyway. But there's another buddy I had there when he actually went there to walk on the trailer. Because they have the truck ramps where you go there and grab a pole and you pull the ramp back and you put it into the trailer, like, you know what I mean, the loading dock. And he went to go in there and it actually folded back like that and trapped his ankle into it. And that didn't get fixed until I was there for almost 2 months. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's not safe at all.
A lot of rundown or broken down stuff.
Yeah.
Since you stopped working at the facility and all this has come out in the media, you've become more educated on the dangers of some of this process and stuff like that. I mean, what do you think should ultimately happen with Stericycle? I mean, obviously medical waste isn't going to stop. It's going to keep coming. You know, what should happen with Stericycle and what should happen to the North Salt Lake incinerator?
Well, just Stericycle, like all the incinerators like across the U.S., I think they should all be shut down because there's more convenient ways and safer ways of getting rid of everything. Like shredding it, there's the, what's it called? It's basically the steam and everything. And there's a lot more practical ways of doing it where it's not putting really anybody in danger getting rid of it that way. I mean, just going to Stericycle slogans like protecting people, reducing risk. No, it's the other way around. I think they should just be shut down and either that or go there and be willing to convert to the other style, you know what I mean?
And do you feel like there was intentional and deliberate criminal acts of dishonesty that were taking place in the facility?
Like on side and everything, she may have just been listening to what to do, you know what I mean? Because was her boss.
So essentially coming down from the top.
Yeah, it could be coming down from her and then she's just doing what she's told us to do and she tells us we're doing what we're told. So, I was thinking there was. I mean, there has to be with as much of this going on there. I believe so.
Anything else you'd like to tell us this evening?
I can think of right now.
Well,
any more questions for me?
I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions for you in the future coming from a lot of places. And, you know, again, I want to say thank you to you for having the courage to come out and, you know, discuss this with us openly, because we've had several other parties that we've talked to about this, and there's been some similar tales, but nobody's really had the courage to step up and come on the show and talk to us about it. So, you know, I want to commend you for your courage in doing so. Want to say good luck and thank you for coming on the show.
No problem, buddy.
For EnviroNews Utah, Emerson Uri, Salt Lake City.